Today is the second program of Impact CMC, normally on campus, where we take our volunteers behind the scenes to review and discuss CMC's priorities and challenges. With our virtual world, we're thrilled to open these programs up to all of our alumni, parents, and friends. Today, we're discussing a timely investment, integrated sciences and computation at CMC. We'll focus on how CMC is building a world-class next-generation liberal arts and leadership program in integrated sciences and computation. We'll begin with President Hiram Chodosh to set the stage. Then we turn to Co-Interim Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of the Faculty and Professor of Biology, Emily Wiley, to discuss the academic vision. Then we'll follow with Vice President for Advancement and Student Opportunities and Dean of the Robert Day Scholars Program, Michelle Chamberlain, where we'll discuss the facility and its effect on CMC's master plan. We're all excited to discuss this timely investment with all of you as we aim to raise the technical fluency of all CMC students. It's my pleasure to turn it over to President Hiram Chodosh. Hiram, thank you for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Evan, and welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today, especially those who were able to be with us for our first session yesterday. During that time, I observed that both because and despite of COVID-19, we really have a unique opportunity this year to accelerate the vision and implementation of our very own next generation integrated program in integrated sciences and computation. And we're really excited to share a glimpse of that program with you today, both on the programmatic side as well as the capital side, the facilities, the campus impacts, and just to give you a sense of what's to come. There are many opportunities for each of you to be involved in this very important institutional priority, the college. Your advice, your continuous feedback, your mentorship of our students, help with their long-term leadership and professional development, help with admissions and recruiting, communication, special events, and your philanthropic support. Each and every one of these discrete ways is going to be so helpful in moving us forward to realize the vision that we're going to show you today. I want to just step back for a moment and observe that really this is the first opportunity that we have to fulfill George Benson's aspiration from the early 50s to build our own science department. And in many ways to answer Mabel Benson's imperative of the original idea, which was to deliver a rationally balanced education to prepare this generation for the future world of affairs. I think we could all acknowledge that science and all sciences and computation and their intersection with everything else that we do at CMC could not be more important in this historic moment. It's also an opportunity for us to accelerate and fuse our computation strategy, collaboration with Harvey Mudd that now delivers over 600 courses in combination with our own program in computer science each year, a guaranteed 20 computer science majors at Harvey Mudd each year, that is for each class year, a data science sequence, which we introduced with our first capstone experiences last year, and a new data science major inaugurated for this year, as well as a few years of really wonderful experience through the Murty Sunak Quantitative and Computing Lab, which provides tutoring, workshops, project-based learning in everything computational. It's also an opportunity for us to build connections to and from science and computation to CMC's other core strengths, econ, gov, psych, philosophy and ethics, and an opportunity in our facility to co-locate mathematics and to build bridges with the rest of our program through all kinds of institutes and centers and labs that we hope to co-locate at the facility that Michelle's going to show you just some glimpses of. And we're going to do all of that in a CMC way through integrated experience, a focus on preparing our students for thoughtful and productive lives, and roles of responsible leadership in business, government, and the professions. So I'm going to turn it now over to Professor Wiley and Dean Wiley, who is serving as our co-interim dean of the faculty. She's a nationally known biologist and leading science educator in Keck Science, and she'll walk you through the program before Michelle will show you some sketches and concepts in our facility plan. And we'll take questions along the way and walk you through the next steps for the college at the end of the presentation today. So thank you all again.
Hi, everyone. I'm a molecular biologist in the Keck Science Department, also taking some roles in the Dean of Faculty Office, including work on the new science program. To talk about the program that we envision, I feel we should start by simply talking about what science is. In the most fundamental sense, science is a way of questioning and learning about the natural physical world. It's a systematic and rigorous process for testing ideas, which is something we would like all of our students to have a sense of how to do. In a society where every aspect is greatly influenced by science and technology, the science literacy that all students need, first and foremost, is understanding this rigorous process for how we come to know things about the natural world and then to innovate using this knowledge. So let's quickly take a look at this process. As we go through, I hope you'll recognize that some of the skills that are involved are broadly transferable beyond the sciences to other careers, or more generally to a productive life as an informed citizen. This process begins with a complex question about the natural world that one then breaks down to a set of good, well-defined smaller questions, each one that can be addressed by an appropriately designed experiment. Then one collects the relevant data, analyzes it, and importantly, evaluates the strength of the data to identify biases and confounding factors that weren't anticipated. Then we revise the experiment to collect better data, more robust data, and go around and around the loop until at some point, a week, months, years later, you have enough evidence to rigorously rule out other options and support an answer to the question, a new discovery. I'll note that central to this process is seeking diverse competitive viewpoints that challenge what you put forward, identify flaws in your logic, biases in your data sets, cause you to question your interpretations, and suggest improvements. This is what all students, majors and non-majors, will learn in the new CMC science program that strongly aligns with our basic mission as a liberal arts college. So how will students learn science process? The only way to really learn this process is to do it, so we'll make research a central component. Courses will engage students in authentic discovery as part of the laboratory component for both non-majors and for majors beginning their first year. Majors will also have access to a variety of sustained research opportunities with faculty members throughout their 4 years, and those will be enhanced through a summer research program and outside research internships. Now, there is no doubt that advances in computational technology have transformed the kinds and scale of scientific questions we can tackle. In our next-gen science education, students will learn and experience the power of integrating computation and data science approaches. That is, how computation helps us process preliminary data to help define the right questions to ask and find relationships and patterns in the massive and complex data sets that our new technologies generate, and integrate new information to make models that explain the natural world or elucidate potential solutions or innovations. And then bring in the deep learning capabilities of artificial intelligence that we're starting to see can quickly guide us to the best questions, the best possibilities to test, even though we may not understand the patterns, recognize, or underlying logic. Wow. And of course, the impact of computation is not just on science, but on any other field or profession aided by modeling or data. So how will we address computation through the curriculum? Non-science majors will be able to take courses in computer science and data science that will apply to their work in other fields, and they'll experience the application of computation through their inquiry-based science GE courses. Students majoring in science will start with a required interdisciplinary foundational core sequence of courses with computation taught as an integral part, a necessary tool for the research and problem-solving challenges that are part of this core. And we imagine most subsequent coursework that builds on this foundation to include a high degree of computation that is integral to the science that students will be doing. Now I'll shift gears a bit. Most compelling and important problems of today are deeply complex and best solved by diverse and multidisciplinary teams. By collaborating across disciplines, both within the sciences and beyond, scientists can access different approaches and views and skill sets. These critical global problems include climate change, food security, many different health care challenges, including global pandemics. Their solutions require scientists with deep domain knowledge to mix it up in this large green space that I'm showing here between the core disciplines that I think of as the great playground for discovery and innovation. Let me give you a recent example of a COVID-19 therapeutic. There is a COVID protein that is critical for replication of the virus. It's called a protease. If you can inhibit the protease, then you inhibit viral replication, making it a major drug target. To search for potential inhibitors, virologists identified the COVID-19 protease, biochemists then isolated the protease, and produced the beautiful crystal structure represented here that determined the shape and placement of all chemical groups. Then computation was used to custom design a possible inhibitor molecule. Then that design was passed to synthetic chemists who made the molecule, and then biologists tested its efficacy. So even 10 years ago, it might have taken a couple years to accomplish all of this. Today, this project was completed and published within 2 months of the first announcement of the virus and involved scientists at 12 institutions in different parts of the globe. And now bioengineers and materials scientists are teaming up to design nanoparticle delivery systems for the potential drug. So how was this done so quickly? It was only possible because of strategic use of powerful computation and because the project scientists had, in addition to their deep domain expertise, an understanding of the tools, approaches, and expertise from other fields. And they knew how to access those and how to communicate, collaborate, and coordinate efficient action on the right ideas. Our next-gen science education will build in our science majors the capacity to understand and work across discipline boundaries in these ways through a robust interdisciplinary curriculum. It begins with that core introductory curriculum I previously mentioned. The core will teach foundational principles in physics, chemistry, and biology in a highly integrated way so that right away students see how one set of principles informs the other. Upper division courses will be problem-based instead of strictly content-focused. And the disciplinary boundaries of the faculty we hire and courses they teach will be difficult to clearly distinguish. Scientists of all majors will be seeking the green space, this playground for discovery and innovation. Coursework and research will guide students there with important open-ended challenges requiring multidiscipline collaborations to find creative solutions or make new discoveries. The Integrated Sciences program will also offer interdisciplinary science majors. In addition to current majors such as economics and engineering, neuroscience, environmental analysis, and science management, we envision possible clusters of strengths and majors and sequences in other areas such as genomics and biotechnology, or possibly expand environmental sciences. Other majors or sequences will intersect with social sciences. Examples may be politics, policy, and science, or science and finance, or science, technology, and society. We hope this latter set will be attractive to the many CMC students who have interests in other areas outside of science, but still wish to gain some deeper scientific training and perspective as part of their 4-year education beyond just the 2-year GE requirement. Notice the arrows into the green space from outside the core science disciplines. Finally, a next-gen science education will emphasize how science and technology interact with society, such that students will develop an intellectual framework for understanding the advantages, risks, opportunities, potential pitfalls, and ethical implications associated with new technologies, discoveries, and other innovations. Requirements for CMC science majors will then include courses that bridge to other disciplines, such as science ethics, history of science, or science policy. We also envision offering sequences and majors that bridge with those topics in other disciplines. For example, some possibilities might be environmental policy or biotechnology and ethics. Of course, we'll have no program without faculty, so I'll provide a few highlights. We plan to hire up to 25 world-class scholars and excellent teachers, a high proportion of whom will have a significant computational component to their research program. These are scientists who will bridge bench and computational work. Some additional faculty hires will be in computer science and data science. And then some hires to build interdisciplinary connections to government, psychology, philosophy, and other fields. We are currently searching for a chair of the department, and after this hire is made, we'll begin filling out the other faculty. Lastly, what would CMC be without a robust co-curricular program? I'd like to say that we will certainly be doubling down here. I've already mentioned that the faculty mentored research opportunities available early in a student's education and the summer research program. In addition, there will be a rich array of research internships, and we envision cultivating projects that would form the basis of collaborations with industry or NGOs, and efforts will be put toward establishing long-term pipelines for internships. How about a guaranteed internship for every science major at some point in their education? Okay, I will stop there and take your questions.
Just to add to Emily's answer, I would say that one of the things we're looking at is a long-term faculty hiring strategy that focuses on what I would call bridge faculty. That is, faculty working within the disciplines of econ, gov, philosophy, other disciplines who have sophistication and interest in topics that are scientific. I see a lot of opportunities for us down the road doing that. And I think naturally there will be some co-teaching and other types of integrated programs, just like we've built upon PPE with our environmental program. I think you'll see a lot of other programs developing like this. The second answer is really to draw on our strong co-curricular programs and the institutes and labs and centers and the project-based learning that takes place in those environments. A third approach is what we've done with our data science major, which is to develop a capstone experience. And this started with a capstone experience for the data science sequence, in which we have teams of 4 working together with industry on a topic or a project. And each member of that team is chosen for their different or diverse expertise that they can bring to that topic. One of the things that I've seen within fields of science and computer science and technology is nationally and globally, we're not doing a sufficient job in making sure that people coming out of those programs understand governance, regulation, taxation, intellectual property, business design, corporate design, finance, accounting, and so forth. And we're also conversely not doing a very good job with students in the humanities and social sciences to make sure that they have fluency in the sciences. And we're going to attack that through a general ed requirements. We've built already a number of very successful models. I'll mention one just by example. Anna Wenzel developed a course in which she can train a non-scientist to read primary science literature in 8 weeks at a fluent level, and then develop a business plan based on that scientific sophistication. If we can do that already, that's the kind of capabilities that our students are so talented that they can develop in a gen ed course. That's not just science for jocks or some gut, but is really a serious intellectual endeavor that draws on their greatest strengths, but teaches them fluency in science and computational disciplines.
There's a very good follow-up to that from Ken, and then we're going to go back up to the top and talk about admission. Ken Stokes added, with the addition of 25 new faculty, does this foreshadow an increase in total student enrollment as well?
I can handle that. right now, we're prepared to do this with our current student body, but we have modeled a student body increase to 1,600 students. There's no decision on that. We're not pushing that anytime soon. When Michelle shows you some of the master planning concepts, we can certainly comment on how we would do that. We have in our master plan a vision for developing something we might call East Quad, and we have a location for that. And it may be part of the long-term development that we're looking for, is to add a couple hundred students to the overall balance. We're also trying to do some more analysis for the college on a strategic level of exactly what our optimal size is and will be. I would only say that the addition of these faculty will provide us, probably in the short term, with a 7-to-1 faculty ratio, maybe better, one of the best faculty-student ratios in the country. And we are also paying for that increase completely with new resources. So we're not borrowing from our faculty salary resources to do this. We're not taking money out of any other account. This is pure new philanthropic dollars that are supporting the growth of our science program, as well as our facility, by the way.
Thanks, Hiram. We had a question about recruitment of students. How will the new emphasis on interdisciplinary sciences and computation impact the type of students that apply to CMC? Is there a different type of student that CMC hopes will consider applying that may not have considered CMC before?
Do you want to take that, Hiram?
Yeah, I think we're hoping to continue to attract the CMCer. In essence, that is the student who's incredibly bright, who wants to understand how to put learning to work, who's interested in leadership, and again, to prepare for careers in business, government, and the professions. And I think what we're aiming for here is to capture within that larger subset of national and global applicants, those students who are really talented and really interested in science. Our current science students rarely are interested in science alone. They often come to us and do science and religion, science and lit, science and gov, and explore some of our signature majors, not only the 3-2 program, which has produced so many outstanding alumni over the years, but also taking our major econ, finance, government disciplines, and they go out and they have the greatest opportunities in the world. We're just looking to expand our opportunities, not to lose talented students to other more powerful science programs, and then offering to those students interested in science an altogether different set of experiences and opportunities than they would find at a large Research One university, where they'd have to pretty much isolate within the sciences, or even at other liberal arts colleges, which won't have our dynamic set of co-curricular and interdisciplinary opportunities for them to do more than one thing in depth. So it's not so much a change in focus, it's an expansion to capture what I believe is a new generation of young men and women who are really looking to integrate science expertise with everything else in the world. And it's our imperative, our responsibility, to prepare them for the world that they're inheriting, to work on some of our greatest challenges with sophistication in these different fields.
Hiram, if I could jump in on that too, I want to let everyone know that both our students, through their choices of major and the types of courses that they're demanding, many of you on this call, when you were at CMC, you were required to take 2 science general education courses, and one of them needed to be a lab. And some of you may not know that that requirement was relaxed nearly 10 years ago. So part of this investment allows that to come back. I also want to mention that when you combine science and technology in terms of outcomes, a quarter of our students are participating in that field and seeking full-time and internship outcomes in that area. Our top consulting firms, McKinsey and BCG and Bain, They love recruiting our science students and are asking for more and more of them because of so many of the concepts that Emily outlined about problem solving. And then finally, I just want to make sure that everyone is tracking that Accenture and Microsoft and Facebook and Amazon, these are CMC's top employers today. Of course, Goldman Sachs is still on the list, and the consulting firms are still on the list with a couple accounting firms, but it's really changing based on what our students are seeking. So much of this is actually answering the demand and the call of our current students that are on campus today.
Thanks, Michelle. We had a question come in about the mathematics department and how is that department engaged in developing the more mathematical elements of the computational science curriculum?
Hiram, do you want to do this, or should I?
You take a shot at it.
So math will certainly be involved in the hires that we make, and right now we don't have. I think when the faculty start taking shape and it really just our plans for who we want to hire, in what fields and what kind of breadth these faculty have. I think that's going to be a time when math faculty will be involved in some of the hires. We don't have a plan right now for how all of that is going to exactly happen.
Right. Currently, Mark Huber, who chaired the math department for a few years, is co-chairing the search for the new chair. And that's quite deliberate to get from the beginning the DNA of mathematics into the computational component of the science vision. Second, our current facility plan is to co-locate mathematics with the integrated sciences department. And that's also deliberate as a way to create those complementarities through proximity. A number of the new hires in sciences will be very sophisticated computer and data scientists, as well as natural scientists. And so we're hoping to get some leverage from this new group to be able to teach non-scientists in some of those proximate disciplines, and that by that means add to our overall mathematics capacity.
Thank you both. We had a question come in a little bit ago from Edgar. Are we thinking of these interdisciplinary students as becoming scientists or engineers? Harvey Mudd produces engineers who then get placement in high impact roles. Scott put in a pay scale report of Harvey Mudd's outcome salaries. They get placement in high impact roles straight out of college. What is the difference of breeding scientists versus engineers? And how can we guarantee that interdisciplinary students gain significant depth in their field in order to develop new significant ideas?
Well, let me start this, and Emily, you may want to come at this from a more educational perspective. But I want to just answer it in a slightly different way, which is to say that I think we should have a long-term perspective on what it is that we're producing. So I'm rather uncomfortable with the notion that we're producing a scientist or an engineer or any particular single profession. I think this generation is actually going to move much more fluently in and out of different professional roles. And I think it would be foolish for us to try to predict those roles, and especially short-sighted for us to only focus on the first few years after graduation. We all know that things change very rapidly. And for arguably the last 20 or 30 years in higher education, engineering schools have actually had to come back to teach business disciplines because a lot of engineers who would rise to the higher levels of their careers would end up getting involved in institutional leadership or sales and marketing and didn't have the background or skills to do it. And I'm using that just as a narrow example of the kind of problem I want to avoid. I want our students to be fully prepared for whatever they want to do and whatever the opportunities of the future that present themselves to them. Success, we always say, is where opportunity and preparation meet. And this is about preparation. Preparation for a world that's changing quickly, that's very uncertain, that there are all kinds of really exciting developments happening throughout not just the sciences and not just computer science and data science, but at the intersections. Emily showed you a wonderful visual of that playground in between the major disciplines of the sciences. We could draw some beautiful green space between the disciplines of those sciences and every other discipline that we think of, whether it's literature or philosophy or history, but also CMC's core commitments to econ and government. I do think that even when we look at our students who want to do pre-med, for example, now, if you actually talk to them, very few of them want to practice medicine for their entire careers, and even a smaller subset of those will practice medicine for the rest of their careers. They're interested in running hospital systems. They want to be Surgeon General. They want to do biotech entrepreneurship. So I don't want to produce, in the end, someone who's narrowly focused on a single profession. I want to produce leaders who are able to move in and out of different professional roles based on a really powerful next generation foundation that integrates these disciplines into one unique educational experience for our CMC students.
Thanks, Hiram. We're going to pause here and turn it over to Michelle Chamberlain, our Vice President for Advancement. We, of course, as I mentioned, we are sharing the chat with everyone later on, so we'll review all the comments. Apologies if we didn't get to some of your questions. You notice we are screen sharing, so if you need assistance, click the view options at the top and drop down to side-by-side mode, and then feel free to click the chat at the bottom and you should be able to see everything you need to see. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, now that we've heard a little bit more about the opportunity that CMC has to create our own integrated and computational science program that is unique to our needs in 2020, we need a home for all of this incredible activity and investment. So my role today is to walk you through what we're thinking and what that might look like for the rest of the campus. Next slide, please, Darren. So here is the campus as it currently exists, and I want to make sure that everyone has a moment to orient themselves with this. You'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, I think it's the right, Claremont Boulevard, and then on the opposite side, you'll see Columbia Avenue. Columbia Avenue would be where Kravis Center and the admission office and many of our institutes are located. And of course, Claremont Boulevard is currently where many turn into the campus. And in what almost looks like the center of this, this image, you'll see Bauer, which is that round building. And if you go just south of Bauer, it ends at Roberts Pavilion. So now that we're all oriented, you can see the big square rectangle labeled Integrated Sciences Site. That is the proposed location for the Home of Science. This Home for Science does so much to the campus, and I want to highlight three main areas. First and foremost, a trustee mentioned this, and it really stuck with me. It creates a front door to Claremont McKenna College. We don't currently have that main entrance, and although Kravis works as an official greeting point from an admission standpoint, this would give us that prominent placement on Claremont Boulevard and give us an official entrance to the college. Second, and much more importantly, this completes the North Mall. So if you look at the mall as the long run that goes from Columbia Avenue all the way to Claremont Boulevard, we have learned that so much of the social warmth and the interaction that our students and our staff and faculty benefit from, that all of our alumni benefit from when you come to campus, that our families experience, is in the social collisions that are perfectly framed by this mall. There are very few little secret shortcuts or areas to sleuth or sneak around campus. Everyone is running into each other as they're moving between the dining hall in class or from class to class between dorms, and we want to make sure that we keep that. So the Sciences Center gives us this opportunity to really close and finish the North Mall, if you will, which will have two of these wonderful facilities, the Kravis Center and our Integrated Sciences Center, really looking at each other as bookends of the future footprint of the college. Additionally, which I'll go into in a moment, by having such a prominent location on the eastern side of campus, it is going to activate what we refer to as our East Campus project, which I'll give you a little more information about in a moment. Darren, next slide, please. So advancing forward, when the science facility is completed, so now you can see it in the same corner, but it's with the yellow dashes around it, you'll notice a couple of areas that are missing moving forward. So right in the center of campus, you don't see that circular building that we all love as Bauer. This envisions that Bauer would come down, allowing for clean lines of visibility and that smooth North Mall that allows for all of our students to be moving around in a way that allows for those collisions. And then, of course, you have a few other placements that for right now are very much just sketched out as possibilities. No one should see this site plan as exactly what is going to happen, but it allows us to envision a campus that is complete from a North Mall perspective. Next slide, Darren. So here's another view. This would be a view of the campus looking east. So this is as if you're standing above the Kravis Center and you're looking east. So the mountains would be to your left and we'd have Pomona College to the right, and you can see the flow and the continuity of that long campus mall. Now I'm using the term long. Hiram, would you like to tell the story of when we walked from the Kravis Center to the proposed site for the Integrated Sciences facility?
Yes, one of the great, I suppose, hazards of having a small, intimate campus is that people have very poor perspective on distance. Sometimes I have students who actually drive to our house 3 blocks away to come over for an event. That always shocks me. But when we were talking about putting the science building on what's now the baseball field, there was immediate pushback that this was just too far. It was just way out there. So I said, okay, let's go for a walk. We took about 15 people for a walk. We walked down the North Mall. As we approached the Bauer Center, I asked everyone if they needed to rest, sit on the bench, have a little drink of water. Was it too rough? And then we went to the edge of the baseball field and everyone looked back and said, oh, this is not far. And it was just the walk and the perspective that this is still very intimate. I think that this North Mall is the equivalent of some of the famous malls in higher ed, UVA, Georgetown. It's pretty much the same distance of those very signature special places. And we think it works beautifully. And then as Michelle will show you, provides also a gateway to the East Campus, and the vision for the development of East Campus with our peers is also another very exciting impact of this vision for the location of the Integrated Sciences building.
Thank you, Hiram. Next slide, Darren. So before we start talking about that East Campus, I want to talk about the position of the building, because the positioning of the building is really core. Not only does this building act as a front door, not only does this building complete that great North Mall that Hiram was just describing, but we're looking to orient it at an angle so that it also activates sight lines to Roberts Pavilion, which is obviously another central building on our campus. Next slide, Darren. So this would be the view. I'm now standing on top of our proposed science facility. So I'm near Claremont Boulevard and 9th Street. I'm now looking west, and you can see that wonderful diagonal orientation where if I go to the left, I end up at Roberts Pavilion and have clear sight lines to that. If I head straight out of the building toward the right, I'm at Kravis Center. So I love this angle because I really feel like it very clearly depicts what we're trying to do from a campus planning perspective. Next slide. So this slide is going to give you that diagonal perspective with the arrows, but this slide also opens up what we have been lovingly referring to as the East Campus Project. As many of you will remember, there is a large rock quarry. Some of us, for the last 12 years or so I've been at the college, I've always referred to it as the pit. So CMC has plans to transform that pit into an extension of the college that, as I said, we're referring to as the East Campus. And our view is that the East Campus would be home to many of our athletic facilities. So there were certainly some questions in the chat about where does baseball go, because clearly this facility is being planned for that area of campus. The answer to that is baseball is likely to go to the East Campus Project, along with so many other facilities. And so you can see that as we move in that direction, you have the North Mall completed with the structure, you have the diagonal that takes you down to Roberts, and then you have a southern pathway that would lead you over to the East Campus for much of our athletic events. Next slide. So here is a version of this from Roberts. So that red building right in the lower center of this image, that's Roberts Pavilion. The beautiful mountain views. You've got the diagonal to the new science facility that in this image is shown as a stacked building. And then you can see, you know, very nascent designs. No one should be wedded to this, but you can see what that pit, what the East Campus could really become as a home to so much of our athletic work. I love that view. All right, so next.
Just one note, Michelle, so everyone understands. First of all, what you see in the location of the science building is not going to be the science building. It will not look like that. That's just a placeholder. Second, what you see in East Campus, recognize that CMC right now owns roughly 55 of the 75 acres in that large block of land. And so we still have to work with our partners to both fill the pit and for a long-term view of not only CMS athletics, but athletics, space for club sports, rec, and other types of uses. On the southern edge of that, you see some, a couple of buildings there that is our land now on the south, that 8-acre plot, which again runs along 6th Street. We purchased that from the Claremont colleges just last spring as part of a long-term move to help develop that East Campus property for CMC and for use by the other colleges.
Excellent. Thank you, Hiram. Next slide, Darren. So just going through, here are some of the ways that the building could be configured. Certainly ample square footage for classrooms, teaching labs, research labs, everything that you would expect to have in an integrated sciences facility, but also a recognition after a lot of study with our campus that our students really need more collaboration spaces. They need maker spaces. They need study spaces, places that they can collaborate after hours. Obviously, any sort of cafe or food option very much helps them to stay there. So those are all elements that we're looking to bring into this facility. Next slide. This is just a cross-section that shows a potential internal flow of the building, very much like Kravis, a lot of natural light. Next slide, Darren. Where we're trying to bring in elements of the outdoors. We're trying to make sure that it's light, that it's visible, that it's accessible. Next slide. These are the great terraces that we're looking to build out, taking advantage of our climate in Southern California and those mountain views. And I know that that sounds funny to some on the call, but the air quality really has improved and we can see those mountains pretty much 12 months out of the year now. Next slide. So finally, just wrapping it up, what are our next steps? And I promise the first question that Evan will address when I'm done is one of timeline. But in terms of the design, we're moving to the next phase of architectural design. All of the buildings that you saw represented in this presentation are just examples. They are not the design that we will be going with. We're looking to recruit our founding chair of the new department, as Emily told you. And since thankfully we've already surpassed the fundraising threshold for moving forward with the program, there's obviously still more fundraising that needs to be done. We will look forward after the chair is hired in bringing on more faculty. And finally, our true focus this year is to not only finish fundraising for the program, but to very much focus on fundraising for the facility. Hiram likes to say that we're about 2 big yeses away from greenlighting the facility, but we are looking for support in that area. So with that, I'll stop talking, turn it back over to Evan, and we'll answer some questions. I know we're running short on time.
Thank you. We are. 2 have bubbled up, and then we'll address those, but we're happy to see anything coming in the chat. We'll review it later, comments and suggestions. Timeline was a big question, especially because we have some concerns with our athletes and our athletic parents.
Hiram, do you want to handle that first in terms of timeline? Oh, sure. So as Michelle mentioned, we're hiring a chair this year. That chair would start on July 1st if we're successful. We already have some really outstanding people that we've attracted, and I think the pool and the demand for this role will actually increase through the year as people become aware of our progress. As Michelle mentioned, we've surpassed the initial threshold for programmatic funding. That's mainly faculty. And we'll have some exciting news to announce later this year, but this is going to make a monumental difference because we've raised enough money to really start hiring once the chair is hired, and to do that in a very, very exciting way. The biggest challenge this year is completing enough fundraising for the facility. And as Michelle indicated, we have some really exciting proposals on the table with a lot of interest, and our role is going to be to try to close those proposals to be in a position to greenlight the project. I would say that once we've done that, we'll probably need another 8 to 10 months of design work for the next phase that would probably bring us to a groundbreaking maybe as early as the middle of next year. And then usually it's about 2.5 to 3 years to construction. So we've still got a long ways to go. But the good news is that if we can figure out some transitional facility plan for bringing faculty in earlier, we're going to be able to start introducing many components of the program sooner than later, so that we won't have to wait 4 or 5 years to get started. We'll start incrementally and start to build these programmatic components as we go along from year to year. So that's the general timeline right now. Obviously, we're not there yet. We still have some big hills to climb, and we have to be a little bit lucky along the way, and we're reliant always on our most generous supporters to help us build the remaining resources we need to realize this outstanding vision. And I can barely wait to show you more details on the design work itself and what we plan to do.
All right, just one last quick question from Ken from Dallas. Ken asks if the facility will be used for anything other than science. Are we going to have clubs or institutes, or what else will that be used for?
Yeah, in some ways, when we call this an integrated sciences building, we misspeak because it is our intention to make it a CMC building. Yes, it will be the home to integrated sciences and math and many institutes, centers, and labs, but it will also offer a real community space, cafe, food, soft studies spaces for individuals and teams, it really, to be successful, has to be a CMC facility. And I want to emphasize that we're building a CMC-centric integrated sciences department. There's not going to be anything anywhere like it. It's going to have all of the next generation features that Emily described. Our peers will be catching up to us in that respect, but in its DNA, it will build bridges both to and from our other core strengths. And that's not just core strengths at a curricular level. It's our co-curricular programs and it's our extracurricular programming. And we want, for this building to be successful, it has to be everyone's home. Every single CMC student, staff, or faculty member that walks in to this facility and experiences the great benefits of every single campus impact from it, will have a sense of true belonging and place. It will become, in many ways, the third pole, the third signature building to our modern campus with the Kravis Center and Roberts Pavilion. And now this new facility will provide a three-legged stool, if you will, for the kind of campus environment that we want, with the extension out into what I think is going to be a very exciting East Campus project.
Thank you, Hiram, and thank you everyone for your attendance today. As I mentioned, we are saving the chat, so feel free to put any last-minute comments or thoughts into the chat. My thanks to Michelle, Hiram, and Emily for their time today and for sharing this vision with our alumni, parents, and our friends. Impact CMC will continue next week with a look into the CMC business model, endowment, and finances, and how COVID-19 is impacting them, as well as a deep dive on Thursday of next week into CMC's research institutes. We hope that you join us. Everybody be safe, be well, and have a great weekend. Feel free to unmute, say hello, but have a great night. Thanks, everyone.